Hey, what's up, everyone? It is Reed Young for PokerSprout.com, and today we're going to be mixing it up at the 50 cent $1 six-handed cash game tables. My game plan is just to go in and feel out all these anonymous players and see what we can do to exploit them, see if we can pick up any reads along the way, and from time to time, I've noticed that there are a lot of shorter stacking players in these games. So I'll be altering my bet sizes accordingly, and that has nothing to do with hand strength or game plan or anything like that. Um, you may notice that with my seats, I've gotten pretty lucky to sit to the left of a lot of the bigger stacks at the table. And that's actually going to be extremely advantageous for me because, I get to make decisions on the deeper stack guys, and I don't have to worry about the shorter stacked fellows as much. So that's sweet. Here, an okay flop for jacks. Might be like a little bit of a tighter call pre-flop, but I think it's actually pretty standard. Not too worried about the multi-street outcome of the entire hand post-flop, and it's nice to have some stronger hands in your range. Here, I'm actually going to bet out because I think it does a better job of not capping my range. In other words, if I check, I have pretty much a face-up hand that seems to be as strong as a pair of aces. So I think betting just plays a little bit better there, especially if a player isn't going to be making bluff raises or semi-bluff raises as often as they should be. In general, at lower stakes, people don't play their draws as aggressively or their made hands as aggressively as in higher stakes, simply because their game plan isn't as well balanced or just as aggressive in general. So that allows you to kind of feel out where you are with some marginal bets rather than just really going for it. Here, I'm going to re-raise as a bluff. I have a king and a queen in my hand already, so that hand actually flops pretty well on average. I get called very quickly, so I would assume that's a hand that he's happy not to fold immediately. I'm going to go for a continuation bet here. I think it has a decent chance of folding out some ace-high hands, but there's also like a good amount of turns on which I can continue, like a jack or a 9, a king or a queen, where I'm pretty happy about the outcome. So here, this is one of those turns, so I'm going to go ahead and bet again. And I'll probably be going for 3 streets here. Pretty interesting river. You could argue that this is thin value, but I don't think it is at all. It's just a card I'm going to be continuing on. I would expect him to have something like Queen Jack every once in a while, but most of his hand range, I would say, would be like Jack 10 suited or pocket 8s, hands like that, 9-8, stuff I definitely beat. So I think it's a value bet for sure, and it's a solid spot for me to bluff as well. So if you're ever bluffing very often, you want to make sure you're value betting as well. Here, I'm just going to re-raise in position with my ace-10 suited. I think the hand's strong enough. This pocket 4's call could be dubious at higher stakes, but I think, and I mean, I guess this is the curse of getting squeezed here, so maybe I'll just wait to say it, but at lower stakes, normally you are re-raised less often, so I think calling with pocket 4s, you do get to realize the value of the hand a bit more often. I could go ahead and bet here. I don't think there's a strong case for it, though, because it's a fairly connected board, and it's likely one of these players is at least calling, and the multi-street outcome is not favorable for me. Here, I was going to check back to try to induce hands like ace-queen or ace-jack to bet into me as a bluff on the river. Now that the river's an ace, I would expect if he did have a king to go for a check raise, so if he bets out, I actually don't think I can really have the best hand that often, which might seem absurd since I just rivered top pair, but unless he's turning a hand like pocket 9s into a bluff, or, there's just no way I can have the best hand if you think about his hand range, and I don't think most people at lower stakes are capable of turning hands into bluffs often enough that I should be calling here, so I'm just tossing it. Might seem like a crazy fold, but you know, I'd be happy to see anyone's argument against it. You know, just because your hand improves doesn't mean it's improved relative to your opponent's hand. And I realize on the bottom right, it looks like I let my let's go ahead and re-raise, sort of for value, sort of as a semi-bluff here. Really, by not flatting very often in the small blind, you avoid giving the big blind the opportunity to re-raise when you have a fairly capped hand range. I'm going to go ahead and wait for the big blind down here. I don't expect to get 3 streets of value by betting King-Jack into my opponent 3 times. And there's a lot of other hands with which I'd be checking here as well. So I would check something like Ace-10 suited, and maybe a few stronger hands as well. So just by checking and calling, it doesn't necessarily mean I have a hand like King-Jack, but that should probably be the bulk of my checking range. Sometimes I'll have something like Pocket Queens, you know, sometimes something weaker. The same here. When he checks back on the flush, yeah, so he checks back on the flush, giving turn, or the 3 flush turn. I guess it's like a normal way to say that. I think he almost always has me beat, but if I bet out, I don't think I can represent much anyway. And I think he would be checking back with a hand like he actually had in order to induce some sort of bluff, which, I don't know, seems kind of strange to me, but, you know, let's get that big blind posted. I think that's just a spot where he thought I probably wouldn't be calling very often, so he checked back, but I don't think that's enough. That's logically important enough to not bet there. In other words, he could just keep bluffing and betting hands. I mean, if he thinks Ace-Queen's always a better hand, unless he thinks I'm going to fall into some weird trap that doesn't really make sense, sort of like we already established. You know, there's not really any reason for him to check that hand back. So we can kind of learn that this guy sort of thinks he's probably better than everyone who's playing here, but probably isn't better than everyone. Or well, he's not better than we are. Well, let's put it that way. Maybe he is better than these other guys on average. It seems like he's at least considering what my hand looked like there. So, but the thing is, I'm just not going to have a flush that often there, especially to check call the flop. So he has nothing really to be worried about. He did yet have the Queen of Spades in his hand, so that's good. This re-raise actually came so quickly. On average, against a 50-cent $1 player, I think that indicates strength. Otherwise, this is actually a great hand to re-raise back with as a bluff, kind of for the same reasons I re-raised with it out of position earlier. But because of his re-raise being so quickly, it's actually got me thinking, might just fold. Here, let's, mix it up. I'm going to check it back. Because I don't think I'll get 3 streets from a worse ace by betting 3 times. So that's kind of the name of the game. You want to check back your weaker hands sometimes. On this turn, now I actually beat a lot of those hands, and he's going to be leading into us with a lot of semi-bluffing hands, so there's a lot of value to our raise here. This turn presents an interesting option for us. We can check call again, or I can check raise bluff. The thing is, if we get check raise, or if I check raise, knock out another opponent, I don't, see, so it's good to raise for value. Yeah, I just don't think we're going to get any of these guys to fold a hand like King-Queen is the bottom line, so I think check calling just plays better. And getting multi-way action with a big draw like this is never a bad thing. So I go ahead and check call again. I think there's pretty much no chance we have the best hand now. And it's not like I'm representing Jack-6 very easily. So, well, we get re-raised by a shorter stack. Oh, good thing the spade didn't come out. So easy all-in here. I would expect us to have the best hand, even against his value range, extremely often. And you know, if he's ever bluffing. We're printing mad amounts of money by jamming ace-king there. King-jack would be a fine hand to 4-bet bluff here. So the raise, a re-raise, or sorry, the big blind is 1, re-raise, or the open raise is 2, the re-raise is the 3rd bet. Our re-raise with King-jack would have been the 4th bet. But I don't think people re-raise pre-flop often enough as a bluff on average. That 4-bet bluffing should be a large part of your game at these levels. People are just going to give you action with your good hands with too many of their medium strength hands, so that kind of helps you get value, even when you sort of, you know, for lack of a better description, just don't deserve it. If they actually knew the math of the situations in which they found themselves. So, boom. Yeah, so it looks like I would say my average, or my advice for like the average 50-cent dollar player would be to re-raise a bit more often as a bluff, less often for marginal value. And you can make big folds a lot of the time, just because people won't be bluffing often enough. This guy's been re-raising quite a bit, and we have a pretty good hand to 4-bet bluff with. It's also fine to call with, but let's go ahead and establish a dynamic of aggression here. And if we get jammed on, we get jammed on. That's going to happen some of the time. But, you know, if he has a bunch of stuff like we did, like King-Jack suited, I don't think he's necessarily moving all in with it every time there. It looks like this player, at least, and this is kind of like one of the interesting things about playing lower to middle stakes poker, is some players sort of understand that they should be re-raising lightly, and some just totally do not get it. So in anonymous games especially, having a pretty theoretically sound approach to the game can be very helpful, because you don't have to play that guessing game of like, do I know if this guy's re-raising me as a bluff often enough or not? You can just sort of go in bluffing sometimes and not bluffing other times, or you can go in kind of with like a population specific game plan. In other words, like what we've been talking about is, on average, people don't re-raise bluff often enough. But, you know, if I see a guy re-raise me 3 times in a row in like, you know, 50 hands or so, it's pretty likely he does understand the idea of re-raising pre-flop. And things like that are not actually that difficult to quantify mathematically, even though it sounds like it might be. And you can check out PokerSprout.com for some ideas on how to do that. It's actually some pretty cool stuff. Here with Queen Jack, we're going to make a little out of position float. I think our opponent will give up on a lot of dry turns, and some of those turns, like a 9, an 8, a queen, or a jack, hit us hard enough that I think we can check raise all in as a bluff. Here's another great example. I think we'll be able to check raise all in and get a hand like ace-5 or just like a random air hand to fold. Whereas if we check call, it's going to be difficult to play the river out of position. And this is certainly predicated on our opponent just betting the turn with complete crap a lot of the time. So that's the worst hand we could have run into, really. In hindsight, I don't regret the play. I mean, you know, sometimes sound logic and results of the hand don't align, and it's poker. An interesting thing to see is if this guy actually takes off after he doubles up. If he does not, I would assume that he's probably going to be a bit less comfortable than average playing a full stack, so we might be able to put him to some bigger tests later. That said, we'll probably have to weigh that against him probably giving us a bit too much credit for tilting. So we might want to opt on the side of just going for thinner value against that guy. So in other words, he's going to think that we're emotional about losing $50 to him because $50 is really important to him. To us, you know, we don't give a crap. So we need to figure out how he's thinking, not just how we should be thinking. There's pros and cons to consider. This board's going to miss both of our hand ranges quite often. So what we'll be doing is aiming to get value from a hand like pocket sevens. So we're just catering to that size. The turn 3 is actually a great card for us. It doesn't really change much. If he has a hand like 6-5, it gives him fewer outs against our hand. So that's nice. Being re-raised here with ace queen is I think a pretty clear call in most games. In this game, we'll probably just go ahead and toss it for sort of the same reasons we've been talking about before. Not really sure what this guy folded. If he folded 7s or 8s or something like that, it could be pretty interesting. But and kind of a testament to why you should be a little bit more aggressive on average in these games in certain spots. I wouldn't expect many people to be hero folding a hand like that. In this ace-10, I think we can just toss. Maybe that's a little tight, but again, I think I don't know. Maybe a check raise bluff would have been better. Not a bad board to do it on. However, we just don't represent much for value. We do represent, some strong draws and things like that our opponent might be worried about. I'm just going to jam this because I don't really want to get re-raised against a 30 big blind stack. And paying the extra rake post-flop and being out of position with ace high. Oh, I mean, it's all really marginal crap. I'm sure there's more value in like raise calling or something, but I'm not really sure if he plays aggressively enough that extra value even exists, if that makes sense. So a lot of that extra value will be predicated on our opponent bluffing. So here I'm going to induce the shorter stack to jam a range of hands that's too wide. While that happens, we can also see a flop against opponent that I think will dominate a lot of his opening range. Here, whether to bet or to check back, I think it is very close. Do we get to showdown with the best hand ever? Do we get to realize all of our equity by betting ever? There's a lot of things to weigh. And now he bets about half pot. This looks really protection-y to me. I'm going to go ahead and call, and then maybe if the river is a spade, probably bluff. This is not a great river for us. Here we have 2-pair, but it's not a strong enough 2-pair to value raise, so we're just going to keep check calling. Horrible, horrible river for us, but the good thing is I think it'll stop all of his bluffs. So if we do get bet into again, I think it's a very easy fold against most players of this limit. So spot on, no surprise there. And we can check out and see what he had maybe in this hand replayer thingy here. King 6. So he had a busted giant draw. Normally I would say like close to optimal gameplay would be to go ahead and bluff that hand. Here on the top left, we're in actually an extremely similar position where we have a crappy 2-pair. Our opponent has a lot of great semi-bluffing opportunities, and our hand is certainly not strong enough to value raise. So we need to be very careful about what happens here. He bet actually very small, so to me this looks like almost a maybe like a queen 8 with a diamond sort of hand, but I guess we'll see. Holy river! Oh, so I think now we pretty much lose no matter what he has, unless he's just gonna give up with a random king, like king 6 of clubs. But the thing is, wow, this is so strange. I don't think he would. God, the turn's so small. It's something like ace queen with a queen of diamonds, or with ace of diamonds. And if that's the case, I just don't think he has a diamond often enough, and he's more likely to have something like. It might be going into hero call mode here, people. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, oh, that makes sense too. The lone ace of diamonds, and I think actually if he does have that on the turn, then our play is fine. He should have a lot of straight draws as well. And it's just like such a fantastic turn card for him to semi-bluff on because, you know, he can have ace king and we really, you know, quote unquote cannot. So I think it's important to realize that a lot of people will be over defending with hands like, I mean, over bluffing when they've been given good semi-bluffing opportunities on the turn. Now, here's an easy two streets of betting for value, obviously, since we have two pair. And we'll be betting largely, just because it's such an easy bluff spot as well. Our opponent's range is going to be mostly hands like Jack-7 at best. So, you know, we're not really worried about anything. So we can be, you know, taking advantage of his weak distribution by betting largely. So yeah, we've learned a few things here. You know, probably err on the side of caution if we're getting three-barreled. I don't think that was one of those spots with the Jack-10 hand. Even though it was close, what else? People probably aren't re-raising you often enough pre-flop in lower stakes games that you should be getting hands like ace-queen all in. Or sometimes even playing them out of position. I think it's close, your reverse implied odds are bad. So yeah, I mean, lots of good concepts to apply for these like lower stakes, middle stakes hold'em games. So if you guys want to learn more about those concepts, check out PokerSprout.com. We teach subjects instead of just having you watch gameplay, so you can actually figure out what to do and make your own decisions at the poker table, rather than just watching me poop on these people and then not really know how to apply it for yourself once you get there. I mean, no two hands of poker are the same. So, you know, concepts, I do believe, have so much more value than gameplay, even though watching gameplay can be pretty fun. So I'm happy you guys joined us. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we will see you all on PokerSprout or in the next video. Take care.